Hello everyone, welcome back to another review of Dark Side of the Ring. This is actually the final review of Dark Side of the Ring as like the halfway point of season 3. Season 3 of Dark Side of the Ring will be back in September and we will resume our reviews then. So this particular episode we focused on Dynamite Kid, who many know as a trailblazer in the sport of pro wrestling. And he's been credited with modernizing the hard-hitting, fast-paced style of pro wrestling. He was known for being an associate to the Hart family, and he's most noted for being in the tag team, the British Bulldogs, which was one of the most earlier popular tag teams in the WWE or WWF at that time. And he was also very well known in Japan. At one point, he was one of the most popular gaijin or foreign competitors in Japan. So he was the center of focus for episode 7 of Dark Side of the Ring. So we're going to give you guys a little review of that. So Derrick, what were some like earlier impressions that you got?
Well, never to have seen much of the Dynamite Kid, and to have never, as Jim Cornette and others said in the documentary, to catch him in his prime, in his heyday, I could see how he ushered in the Brian Pillmans and the Owen Harts and the Eddie Guerreros of the world. And as far as tag teams go, I can understand how he and the Bulldogs and his tag team together, and with the Hart Foundation, I can see how those two ushered in synchronized tag team with speed and power.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at Dynamite Kid, the person that I can think of is 𝘋𝘺𝘓𝘳𝘬 a little bit with his style that was in the 90s. I can also think of 𝘚𝘪𝘥𝘦 a little bit in with their technical stuff. In the lineage of Billy being from Canada, I have to say, wow, I never would have expected Canada to have such a deep tradition in pro wrestling. I was learning that Dynamite is the cousin of British Bulldog too. That's kind of also, okay, so there's this huge family dynamic that played well with one another. So.
Yeah, so according, like, I think my question for you is, given the clips that you saw of like his matches, like what were your first impressions of his like overall style, besides the fact that it was like very fast paced, hard hitting, and it was kind of like, for me, it kind of laid out the blueprints for like future like high flyers and like, you know, those cruiserweight style, like when you later began to see like WCW and like WWE. It was kind of like the precursor to all that.
They were. I agree with that those two were the precursor, as you put it, for what we ended up getting in the cruiserweight division in WCW. So the mixture of a high flyer and a powerhouse. That's really what today's wrestling is missing, per se, in my opinion.
I agree, 100%. I agree. Can you
I
like
think
go? Could you like go deeper into that though?
Well, let's see. Of those superstars and tag teams that we got, that use size, height, and speed, I can think of Drew McIntyre and Ziggler. Ziggler being the technical high flyer, Drew being the powerhouse. I think of the New Day, depending on however you utilize the three of them. Big E being the powerhouse, or whoever you want to link him with, those were there's a couple teams that came to mind. Others that might come to mind would be I'm trying to think from WCW, speed and power with some technicality. Boy. Because they really didn't emphasize tag team wrestling that much. But I think one thing would be Harlem Heat for WCW that utilize speed, power, technician.
Could you also count like the Road Warriors on as one of those teams? I mean, I think they were more power than like
they were
speed, but they had that agility piece too.
Yeah, the Road Warriors, Steiner Brothers, those teams, Fire and Ice, were strictly power, not much technical finesse. Those teams were straight power. You couldn't. They came from that bodybuilding, arm wrestling background, so you really couldn't. You really couldn't do nothing with them, except for Scott Steiner. He was the one that could, I guess, get a good match out of somebody, him being a powerhouse, but he had an high flying technical aspect as well. I think Scott Steiner would be like the closest single star that comes from a tag team background that has a powerhouse, high flying technical ability from his early days before the Big Papa Pump character into existence.
Big Papa Pump. Oh my God. Every time I think of Scott Steiner, I think of like his crazy promos that he cuts, but that's like a whole nother video. So I'm gonna go through my little notes here. So I think another thing that really stuck out to me throughout the documentary, like wrestling wise, we're gonna get more into like the personal aspects of him later on, but wrestling wise, like during his time during the WWF, it just kind of seemed like he wasn't entirely satisfied with this run. I mean, obviously you couldn't tell, like you couldn't like tell in the ring because you know he was out there giving it his all. But I think he really felt more appreciated in Japan because like he had like those acclaimed matches, like Tiger Mask, for instance. Pretty sure a couple others, but I got onto Dynamite Kid through his match with Tiger Mask. Those series of matches that they had, like, were just mind blowing. But in WWF, it just seems like he was in it because you know he was popular with like the British Bulldogs, but on top of it, it just didn't seem like he was really like satisfied with this run. So that was something that kind of stood out to me. I wanted to know like what was like your thought process on that, because it's kind of interesting. I kind of feel like maybe he kind of preferred to be like more like revered in like the Japanese circuit, because he was like very popular at that time, rather than like, you know, the American promotion WWF, because that promotion was steadily growing at that time in popularity. So I just thought that was pretty interesting to me.
Well, the first time that ironically it was it's this episode of WWE's the collector show that comes on after the biography episodes come on A&E.
Mhm.
And it was an episode where Great Hammer Valentine was featured, as well as British Beefcake.
Mm-hmm.
And those two had if I'm not mistaken, Great Valentine said they had like a 2-year feud with the Dynamite Kid and with British Bulldog, and it was over the Tag Team Championship. And they had the culmination in a tag team match at WrestleMania 2 in 1986, which they won the Tag Team Championships. Of course, that WrestleMania 2 is the first 3-city simulcast WrestleMania ever, and I don't think they'll ever do that again.
Really? That's an interesting.
1986 saw WrestleMania 2 get simulcast in 3 cities: New York, Chicago, and in LA.
That's interesting.
So I'm not sure. Based on the match card, there's a YouTube video on the history of WrestleMania 2. I'm not sure which card, part of the card. I'm not sure which city got to see that match, but if you watch on Peacock, WWE Network's WrestleMania library, and you see WrestleMania 2, you'll see what I'm referring to. We have 3 different cities host that one show. So that tag team match that took place that night, I'm not sure which city it took place in, nor the reaction of the audience.
That's really, I honestly, like, I did not know about that fact. So that actually changes like the perspective of things a little bit, to be honest.
I mean, his tag team, from what I can understand, they had the moment where they, of course, they won the tag team championships, and then I think they had some feuds that worked and some that didn't. Similar to the Rockers, working with everybody, and I guess having some heat with some people. Most notably, Dynamite Kid had a feud with the Rougeau brother. That stood out to me in this episode, due to the fact a practical joke was taken too seriously, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Some, you know, I don't know what you would call it, some hazing type or whatever. That's one thing I could say in any card game scenario in the Black neighborhood. That's the one thing you don't do. You do not go smacking somebody upside the head, especially if you have a fresh haircut.
You went there.
It's a cardinal sin.
That was out of the blue, but you got a point. But
I mean, I never would have expected that they would have done that. You know, they're, I guess, sitting playing cards or playing dominoes or something, and Rougeau just right upside the head or whatever, cracking
Yeah,
jokes or whatever. And
that was just out of pocket.
serious. And then, of course, somebody felt the mob was coming after him. I don't know how that feeling came about.
I think it was Rose, right? I cannot pronounce their beautiful last name, but I think they talk about like some kind of note was written and then like they passed it along. This is like basically you keep fucking with me, like we're gonna come get you. And then I guess like Dynamite Kid took it as like oh shit, like a gang of mafia after me. And I was just like, he fell for that?
The crazy thing about that is the person that he got this with, Rougeau, of course, gave him a fake name or something like that. And 𝘠𝘪𝘠𝘬 was the scapegoat in all this. He played a role in all this. And isn't it ironic that 𝘠𝘪𝘠𝘬 gets got the same way that people thought, or Dynamite thought he was going to get done? And
yeah.
It is sad because 𝘠𝘪𝘠𝘬's murder is still unsolved.
Really?
They've never found the culprit. It's been nearly 30 years, and just
the whole thing just seems off to me.
And his wife basically said, "Yeah, like I don't know what the hell this was about. I don't know why I asked about this." And, the things that led up to it. I mean, you thought it was a joke among the boys, but the way that it was taken, they sold their house. He got a gun, and his wife was like, "I'm not having that. I don't know what's going on." And he just said, "Here, in case somebody come looking for us, be prepared."
Yeah, the whole thing was just fucked up, and it's like keeping it real. It was fucked up, and the fact that they were taking like those serious ramifications, like no one like had the balls to come out and be like, "Hey, like it's a joke," or it's not like as serious as they were like letting it on. But I don't know. The whole story was just like, it was mind baffling to me. But I can kind of I don't blame Dynamite Kid and his wife Michelle taking those steps. It was like, oh shit.
I don't think she took it. I don't think she took it seriously.
I think it was more Dynamite that took it seriously, and then she kind of all right.
I mean, Dynamite, yeah. Like I said, I've never played a prank on somebody, and then it turns into I have to, fear for my life for the next 10, 15 years or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that I took away from that scene of it was Rougeau caught Dynamite square in the mouth.
Yeah.
With
the beef was real, bro.
And that he actually got really, really peeved about that, which I was surprised. Like, this is the thing that you get for playing a practical joke. So, I mean, a roller coaster's caused a bloody jaw. Hey, well, you got what you got. And I think this was that incident happened backstage right before or right after a tag team match where the Rougeau brothers, I believe they lost that match, and the Bulldogs were on it, and he was cool with it. He was like, "I'm hanging. I survived, with the tag team champs, and I'm thinking we're gonna, boost our morale with that match.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at the time, Dynamite was using, because you can see his transformation in his body a little bit. One of the Usual brothers, he vividly remembers Dynamite Kid coming in the locker room one night getting ready and having like several needles sticking out of him. Like, really? Come on, that's going to me. One's okay, but several? Good God, how bad is the pain of the will to make it to the top? Because I don't think they got any higher than a tag team division. They never got to single status or anything like that. They never got to
That's true.
do singles runs or anything at that time. So you were strictly a tag team wrestler, and that's what you were. It's crazy because I look at how David Boy Smith, his cousin's career panned out. Dynamite leaves, Bulldog kind of fades away a little bit, and then surfaces in '92. And from '92 to '96, up until the Montreal Screwjob in '97, David Boy Smith was the star of that team because he got title shots.
Yeah, he flourished on his own.
And I don't know if Dynamite held some resentment against his own cousin, but
yeah, and it kind of makes me wonder, did Dynamite Kid have that potential to break out on his own in WWF? Or maybe, he wasn't really seen as like that breakout single star in WWF. And that's why I was kind of going back on that point where, as in Japan, it was different because he was like that standalone single star in Japan. In contrast, to, being in the WWF, he was like mainly a tag team competitor. And then you see the British Bulldog, he had a little stagnation, but then he eventually got his push, and then he wins the Intercontinental title at SummerSlam, and he's getting that little singles push. So it always makes me wonder, did Dynamite Kid have like that potential during that time period, or was it, wasn't that time yet? Given the image that WWF wanted to portray still at that time, given the push to the larger wrestlers.
Yeah, some would say, why didn't he leave the WWE and go to WCW? Because not only did David Boy Smith leave the WWE, he's left most of the time and going to WCW, and he actually was one of the ones that came after SummerSlam '92, and did a short-lived tag team with Sting in '93. He was only there for a few months or something like that.
Okay.
And then he goes back to WWF in '94. And from '94 to '97, that was his, if I can be honest, that was his real peak of his career, '94 to '97.
Yeah.
And then he leaves, goes back to WCW from '98 to like early '99, and then comes back in 2000. And then, we know how his career ended, unfortunately. He gets a heart attack at 44 or 45 or something. He passes away in 2002. So, that's a little bit of the story of the Bulldog's career. Once he got away from the Dynamite Kid, I wonder what his I wonder what his career would have been like had he been a part of the Heart Foundation.
Dynamite Kid, you mean?
And not exactly not team with the Bulldog. Say let's say that would have been Jim and Neidhart team with the Bulldog. And let's say that would have been Dynamite would have teamed with Owen and Brett. How would the career how would his career would have panned out?
That the landscape would have obviously been much different, and that's what's like a what if, like given all the personal issues and and the injuries and like also his issues with like sleeping pills and his erratic habits and behaviors kind of like hindered him. And then his ex-wife Michelle was talking about how he would go in the ring injured, just in tremendous pain and still taking those bumps and probably going 15 to 20 minutes.
And I believe he did that. And I believe he came out of retirement and was doing that.
Yeah.
And most people don't have a relatively successful career after an injury like that. When your back goes, or when your legs go, when they go, there's nothing you can do about it. It's very sad to let go of your glory days. That's what his sister referenced when he was watching the tape of him the Tiger Mask, and he's like, that used to be me up there, putting on great matches and upset that he can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Father Time's undefeated. There's no everybody gonna get it at some point, but Father Time's undefeated. There's no, I don't care if you take time off, if you know how to protect yourself from doing certain things and you taking bumps and stuff, no matter how well you do that or how well you keep yourself in shape, Father Time's gonna get you. Or Mother Nature gonna get you one way or the other. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of what happened to Dynamite Kid. And I think it's also important to know how his health and his very unhealthy habits, it affected his personal life and what was happening in the home. And I think the thing that I personally enjoy about Dark Side of the Ring the most is it's kind of like that trusting the art. In this case, we're talking about wrestling, but not necessarily putting all your trust in the faith in the artist or like the wrestler, because it's important to note that no matter how great they were in the ring or how trailblazing they were or what kind of mark they left on the industry, there was some shit that they either went through or they put, their loved ones through. And I think with Dynamite Kid, it was just like the perfect example of trusting the art, but not particularly the artist. And Mick Foley said that at the end of the episode. And I think it just kind of rings true to not only to Dynamite Kid's like career and like his lifetime, but just like pro wrestling in general. I think it's just really important to bring those points up, not to like particularly shame, the wrestler. Even in the midst of their problematic issues, it's important to note like the humanness of the wrestling, like saying, okay, they're this great technician, high flyer, powerhouse, whatever, but yet they still, this fucked up shit, or they fuck up just like the rest of us. So, and it's also important to note that even with the small time frame that Dark Side of the Ring or any documentary does, like episodes, they tend to leave out crucial points of like, a wrestler's story, like in their career or personally. So we may not know everything that happened, you know, with like Dynamite Kid's family and their entire dynamic, or even like in his like careers, probably some other crazy career stories that wasn't even mentioned. They probably just want to pinpoint like probably the most notable ones. But yeah, I wanted to put that out there just so like everyone can like understand that it's okay to respect a person's artwork, but you also need to acknowledge, their slip ups, their mistakes, and just downright problematic behavior, because we're all humans, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us have been subjected to those things in our lifetimes as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I think it's like pretty tragic because even in the midst of like Dynamite's trailblazing career, he's still kind of like one of those what ifs, especially in terms of like, for me personally, his WWE career. I personally feel like something more could have came out of it. Maybe it was kind of like the wrong time period, like especially during the 80s, there was still like kind of the Hogan era. Then you had other big heavyweights like Ultimate Warrior, Sergeant Slaughter, various other folks. And then by the time the 90s hit, he had put his body through way too much pain. So he retired and came back a couple years later, which, that's not the first or the last that a lot of wrestlers have done. Came back, and then he was his body through more pain. So it's basically like he's like one of the living embodiments of suffering, but at the expense of his art, or like his craft.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's kind of bad to retire from something when you still have the fire to do it. But I think what I have a question of is, was he doing it for the legacy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or was he doing it for the money? They always say once you stop loving something, that's when you know it's time to let it go. But apparently, I don't know too many athletes in this profession to make a full recovery from the injuries that he may have suffered and have a productive second career, as they say. Maybe Sean's the only one to have done it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anyone else, but I do agree with, though there may be some of those people out there who are probably wondering, will the Dynamite Kid ever be included one day in the WWE Hall of Fame? And I don't really know how to answer that, being that how long it took to get the Bulldog in.
Mm.
I don't know if he is Hall of Fame worthy.
Yeah. This is a really good question, but it's hard to like actually pinpoint an answer or answers to those questions. But I do really believe that he sacrificed pretty much his being for like his craft, like honing his craft. And he was really great at what he did. But the cost was his health and ultimately his relationship with, those that he was closest to.
And that it's funny how this episode, the Warriors episode, let's see who else's episode, and Brian Pillman's episode. I'm counting that's 3 episodes of this season so far that the women seem to be more careful of their husbands at that time. And it's like, how do y'all choose to tolerate people is what I'm trying to figure out. Once you realize these people are not any longer who they once were, how do you not try to seek help for them?
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those very touchy and delicate situations. But I'm also the kind of person who's just like, I don't care who you are or what you do for a living. Like, committing an act of violence or hurting like those you love or just people in general is not okay. And that's why what I said earlier is important to acknowledge and kind of call out those problematic moments, not just in wrestlers, but just like people in general. But in this case, like the wrestlers. And I think the part of the documentary, like I keep saying documentary, but the part of the episode that kind of stood out to me more was, you know, their youngest daughter, Amaris, and she didn't really understand or really know about the abuse until she was around a teenager. And it was just like, what really got to me was just like, I was mad at my dad for what he did to my mom, but I was mad at my mom for like, she felt like her mother was lying to her and not like really telling her the truth. And that kind of like changed like pretty much, you know, her experience. And to be honest,
as a child as she's gotten older, she's not the first person to feel that way.
Yeah. And just like the dynamic, and then ultimately Dynamite Kid like just kind of like stepping away from the family for like a long period of time. And then like what Michelle said, it was just like, yeah, you know, maybe that was the best, because she felt like he was realizing that there was something wrong and that he did need some kind of help. And she felt like him stepping away was kind of like the best thing for the family, and like just leaving them be. But, you know, there are some ramifications for that, especially for children, because, and this is coming from like experience, I grew up in a single parent home. It kind of fucks with your head mentally. And I can kind of, and it kind of worsens with the fact that, you know, the dynamic between the parents, you know, there was abuse going on. And then, well, I don't want to like go too deep into it, but I just feel like it is very important to talk about. And you hear these horror stories about like wrestlers like taking out their frustrations on like their loved ones, particularly, you know, their female partners, spouses, whatever the case may be. And of course it results in like tragedies and like murder, you know, ultimately couples splitting up, and then it affects not only like the couple, but like maybe children that they have, or, you know, other family members. And is a long history of that in pro wrestling. And I think even though it's really been talked about, and I appreciate that, I still kind of feel it should be talked about more. Like there should be like more conversations around it.
See, all I can say is this is another episode that is advocating for those who are in domestic partnerships. Get out the safest way you can.
Yeah, get help. Reach out for help.
If you got kids, I'm sorry, you gotta go. I mean,
yeah.
I know we always say a happy home is a two-parent home, but
yeah, but in some cases, you know,
I never had a two-parent household for the majority of my life. And if you want to take a testament, take it from my life. I didn't grow up with a two-parent household, and I turned out fine.
Same here.
For the most part, at least to some people's standards. I might be a little bit nutty, but hey, whose opinion do I care about?
And yeah, I think for that episode, for me, it's kind of like it kind of hits home like some prevailing themes that we like noticed throughout these past couple episodes, like especially like Brian Pillman, you know, Nick Gage, Ultimate Warrior, and you know the review that we didn't do, you know, with like the Grizzly
Well,
Snacks.
I can't. I guess I can exclude Nick Gage's episode.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Only because he didn't come from a broken home where he saw his mom get beat up and stuff like that. His story
was more like loss, like extreme, like loss. Like
his story, I would say, is once he lost his mom and lost his brother. That's where his story takes place. But these others, Brian Pillman, like what you just mentioned, and others for this season thus far, it's a damning psychological upbringing that I don't think anybody would want to win Parent of the Year award or Traumatization Year award, if there is such a thing. You get an award for overcoming the most trauma or dealing with the most trauma. Like, man, how much BS can a person carry and then act like things are fine when they're clearly not?
Yeah. And just like, and even the physical toil that the subjects had to deal with, along with like the mental toil, you know, of like their upbringing, and then like even present situations that they went through throughout their lives. It's like, how can like one stomach this? But then in a way, they managed to transition it into their craft and in the square circle. And it's just like kind of what Jake the Snake Roberts said in episode 6. He said all that hate that he had, that animosity that he had towards his father, Grizzly Smith, he took it and he put it into his character. And, you know,
which was smart.
Yeah, it was smart. It was a way for like him to like transmute that energy. It's like, okay, I gotta do something with this. Granted, you know, he also fell, you know, into like his own personal battles, but in the ring, you know, you can see like that character flourished, and it was so like raw and authentic, and of course it scared the hell out of some of those fans. Like, he made it seem so real. So that's like another aspect of it. They took like wherever that was going on personally, like wherever tragedies or traumas they were suffering, and they managed to like transition it into the ring, and it made it so fluid to the point it was just like you couldn't even tell if they had like some of the most tragic shit going on in their lives. They were just doing what they do best and what they were great at. I think it was kind of incredible to like kind of see it like come to like through like the documentary series.
Yeah, this is a docu-series. I would describe it as such, as a live docu-series. And it is giving us wrestling fans that come from that purist era. It's giving us a look behind the fourth wall.
Absolutely.
Even if you don't want, even if you don't want to acknowledge it, you kind of have no choice but to heal from it or expose it, because you know we all know life ain't sunshine and rainbows. So, the quote there from a Rocky movie. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch a Rocky movie. Sunshine
You know what the movie references again.
Yes.
I feel like you're gonna give me a movie reference on every vlog. But I think here's a question for you. With all 7 episodes that we've reviewed and watched, which one out of all of them that we watched thus far was the most interesting to you or stood out to you the most?
The most interesting one, it would have to be either Nick Gage or this one, simply because there is footage of the Ultimate Warrior. You can find all his matches on the WWE Network. Ryan Pillman, you can find all his work on the WWE Network, so you can do your wrestling historian homework on him. And everybody that does these career bio videos, they tell the story of what they were going through, and everything is accurate. But Dynamite Kid and the Grizzly story, I did not know much about those too much, and it's just very. I don't even want to say anything, so I'll just too much. It's just too much. Like, I can see why his kids either channeled the things the way that they did, held some resentment to their mom, if any. I can see why, as far as Jake the Snake is concerned, and I'm happy for him. Thanks to DDP for getting involved and not giving up on people like him.
Yeah.
Because it could easily just go to the wayside and you deal with personal problems. I don't want to get dragged down with you. Who would? But for somebody to say, I'm sticking this out, I'm not going to give up on this person. There is a good person inside of all that madness. I'm going to help with. I mean, most people don't sign up for that without losing something of themselves. So, I just think those couple of episodes have been interesting. I'm hoping that one day there is a career bios video done. Shout out to you, Wrestling Bios Career, on YouTube, that you do a Dynamite Kids video. So that those of us who only just know about this episode here from Dark Side of the Ring, we get a more in-depth episode. And the ironic thing about, he's from the UK, so the creator of Wrestling Bios is from the UK, so he probably would know more about the British wrestlers that made an impact in the business, and I would love to hear his opinion on Dynamite Kid.
Yeah, I think for me, the one episode that stuck out to me the most was the collision in Korea. And the reason being is that I've heard so much about it and I read about it, and up until that episode, it was kind of like a mystery to me. It's like, yeah, like it has like this large audience, granted, the numbers of the spectators kind of like varied, but just like the stories of the wrestlers that actually participated in it, and then just like the overall landscape, of North Korea. I mean, that's pretty much well documented at this point. It's just kind of like, how are they able to pull this off? That was like my question throughout that whole like episode. And it was just very interesting to me how they were able to go through with that and just pull that off.
It's strange because, again, this is that particular episode, the collision in Korea. That was an episode, and I'm sure WWE in some fashion kind of glossed over it. But like if WCW had a chance if they were still in business to tell that story. WWE, I'm surprised they didn't get a chance to tell that story, let alone think of doing it. We have several more episodes to go. I think we're in store for a lot of more unsurprised fourth wall history.
Yes, and like I said earlier, it's coming back in September, but don't fret, we have a lot more other things to talk about in like vlog content and whatnot. But I'm like you, I'm really excited to see what else they have in store for us. It's kind of like you're getting left off on a cliffhanger. It's like a cliffhanger.
No, I wouldn't call it a cliffhanger because I believe this Thursday on Vice, we get that 2-hour
China
special.
Oh, we know we have to dive into that. We got to dive in because I was so happy when they decided to put that out.
We can honestly say it right now. Those who do not know who China was, she was the powerhouse before powerhouses existed. And she came in at the right time. Even if her career was short.
She was a hit among the fans. Big hit.
She came in at the right time.
Absolutely.
So I guess the final takeaways that we can tie this up with is Canada gave us a lot of great wrestlers. 𝘠𝘪𝘯𝘨, Dynamite Kid, Bulldog, Owen Hart, Bret Hart, Jim Neville, Neidhart, and even Roddy Piper. One person who I did not know was Canadian.
He was.
I'm serious. Like these wrestling biography episodes that are coming on A&E, and they are just as informative as.
Hop on those episodes, please.
Dark Side of the Ring. They are just as informative and just as entertaining. I mean, you want to know about the Montreal Screwjob even more? Watch the biography episode on Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything on any of those episodes, but one thing that I can say that piqued my interest in watching and hearing about the Shawn Michaels episode was a quote that Triple H gave in regards to WrestleMania 10 in the ladder match between Razor and Shawn. And I didn't know this, but Shawn and Razor, they experimented a little bit, and this was post-match in a hotel. And Shawn might not admit to it, but Razor would, and he has openly admitted it. They experimented with something, and they nearly had a fatal incident. And I think he even mentioned it in his book. I experimented with something in '94, the night after WrestleMania 10, and for like 10, 20 seconds, I was wrong. And I deserved to go. Which, I don't know what it is with pro wrestlers from this era, these late 80s, early 90s wrestlers. What is it that they are trying to fill a void for? Is it, an absence of a parent, or, bad upbringing, something like that?
Or maybe it can be like just that adrenaline rush, or living fast, that rock star lifestyle too. So that's the other side, but mostly is the background piece that kind of
and
influences
I think
those instincts.
I think all these tie together for some reason. These Dark Side of the Ring episodes and these new A&E specials, they kind of tie together hand in hand in telling the story of wrestlers upbringing, channeling stuff and holding it in and finding a way to unleash it, which is good. But once the line dim, and you have to go back to addressing what you were running away from, it's harder to do that because now you don't have any choice but to address those demons, which nobody likes doing that. I don't care what you say, what profession you have, what career you have, what upbringing you have. If you have any trouble, issues in your life, and you don't want to address them, it's not the end of the world to leave them married. There's nothing wrong with that, in my opinion. But to some, it's better to address them so that you can be a better person. But in my opinion, if you decide to bury them and not hash them out, and you think that'll make you a better person, stand up and do it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think we can cap it off on that note. That was a great point. So like I said earlier, I'm gonna say it one more time. Dark Side of the Ring is set to return for the second part, season 3, September. But coming up, we have Hell in a Cell review. That's gonna be coming up here pretty soon.
Yes, and if I'm not mistaken, well, I'll save that little celebratory announcement the week of our review for Hell in a Cell.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll save that little announcement for that vlog.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get Tamina and Maddie versus Dana and Mandy, possibly, based on what we saw last night.
I mean, yeah, and on top of that, we got Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio on deck, Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair, and we also got Alexa Bliss versus Shayna Baszler.
I think we know which match is going to steal the show. Unfortunately, I think we know what match is going to steal the show.
Yeah.
And it's going to be. It's not going to be the Universal Championship. I'm sorry, it ain't. It's not going to be the WWE Championship. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
What is it?
I'm thinking the match that's going to steal the show, or at least make people, I guess, lose their seats. It may be Rhea and Charlotte, because now Charlotte is not playing that Cry Me a River character. Now she's playing that Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, 2009, 2010 type of thing now with Rhea, in my opinion, where she's obsessed with getting what she feels is right for her. She's obsessed with it. Is eating at it, and it's like, this is what I wanted her to come back with, not this pity party Cry Me a River. Thank God she didn't. I think we're going to see more of Nikki Cross, which she's been on a mini hot streak of sorts. I'm kind of disappointed that she is not getting thrusted into the women's championship picture.
Mm-hmm.
She should. I mean, you can. The women's champion. You've gotten two victories over her. You've gotten victories over Charlotte. That story is telling itself, I guess. I think we're going. I think last night we did get a new challenger for the WWE Championship, and these two guys have never faced each other in Impact Wrestling. I don't think they worked in New Japan before, but I think we're going to get AJ Styles versus Lashley.
Yes.
Something tells me we're going to get that, and I hate to say it, we might get a new champ. We might get a new champ.
I'm not sure about that, but it's
that
possible.
Is, and here we are in June. So Money in the Bank is in July. August is SummerSlam. Still, SummerSlam may be the biggest party of the summer and the biggest party of the year, because now there are some rumored matches and some rumored returns that could possibly go down.
I think we should save that for another.
And we're going to save it right there. We're going to cut it right there. We're going to just give you that little bitty nugget.
You can't spoil everything.
And we're not. No. We're not going to spoil everything. We're not going to spoil everything. But we'll leave it with this. Congratulations to Mickie James. She is in NWA right now.
And she's got an all-women show, and she's producing it. I'm sorry.
And this is what I hate. Time to find out, we all know about WWE Evolution. That was WWE's first all-female pay-per-view special. And Mickie wanted to run that back again.
Yes.
And I did find this out before her release. She wanted to run that back again, and she was denied that request. And I'm sure that broke her heart.
Long story short, she decided to do it elsewhere, and ta-da, she has a show now.
I don't understand why they wouldn't do it, being that they did do it with Stephanie and others. They did it 3 years ago. Why not do it again? What was different about this go around?
That's all. Who knows?
Yeah, we got some returns last night, some debuts last night. And
dude, I think we should cap it off now. It's too much going on.
Yeah, too much going on. NXT Takeover Fallout tonight.
Yeah, I gotta catch that.
It was worth it. Todd Pettengill and Doc Hendricks and the old school intro were awesome. Next month, on the 6th of July, we get another throwback to the past. So we got about 2 weeks before we get NXT's Great American Bash.
Yeah, we gotta finish up now.
Let's rock and roll.
And by the way, just to really cap this off, my total view count for like my Dark Side of the Ring series up to this point is like over 450 views. So I'm very happy about that.
Over 450?
Yeah, so and counting. So we'll see what happens by the time September comes. So yeah, we got a lot going on.
Yeah, this has been a Span the Rim exclusive. So rocking with us, we thank you. I've officially made my announcement of my channel coming up pretty soon. Next to Gwanyalla. So hopefully we'll get my stuff up and running soon before the year's out. And yeah, come with us.
Stay tuned.
That's what we do.
We're working on that. It's kind of like willpower at this point, but we got it. So thank you everyone, and P+ for our Hell in a Cell review. among other things. We got a lot more coming. Peace.